Welcome to the Ranchonomics podcast, where we empower you to build a better ranch and transform your operations into a thriving business. I'm your host, John Haskell. Let's get started. Well, Charlotte Smith, welcome to the Ranchonomics podcast. I am thrilled to have you here. I have heard your name from a few people. Chloe Deagle recently on our podcast mentioned your name. And when she did that, that was the second or third time I'd heard of you. And I'd listened to your podcast before, so I figured we better get you on to talk. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Excellent. Would you give us a little background about yourself? You've got a great story that's kind of motivated you to where you're at in your business, and I'd love to know more about it.
Sure. Today, I teach farmers how to make money, and that stems from my childhood. I grew up on a farm that's just right up the road from me here in Oregon. And my dad's farm went bankrupt, and that was about a 4-year process while I was a teenager. So it's humiliating when you're in a small community and you owe people money, and we lost everything. And so I thought farming was a ridiculous way to make a living. So I went away to college, and then a few years later, small kids living in the suburbs, I thought, well, I wanted them to have the same lifestyle I had growing up. So moved back out here 20 years ago and decided to start my farm. But it was from this place of, I was not going to go through what my parents went through. I was going to make it profitable. And so I dove in learning how to do that. And I did that. I had a raw milk dairy and started that in 2009. And other farmers were wondering, how was I able to sell out at sometimes double the price they were charging? They couldn't sell half the stuff. So I started having farmers to my house. This was back in probably 2012, teaching them marketing. And then in 2014, when I had 55 farmers at my house and muck boots everywhere, I thought, oh, there's got to be a better way. So I turned it into an online course. And now I do 100% online. Unless I'm speaking at a conference, we do all my marketing training on Zoom, live and recorded. And I'm happy to say I'm helping farmers every day who realize you can make money as a farmer. And if there's one thing I have message to get out in the world, it is that we don't have to be broke like society wants us to be. There is, when you learn the skill, you can make money. So yeah, I'm very passionate about that.
That's awesome. And your basic model that you work with is a direct consumer type model where we're vertically integrating the production and the customer.
Yes. Yep. You're selling direct to consumer, because if you're a commodity farm, you're at the mercy of your contract, which is always going to be a race to the bottom. Cheapest price wins.
Right. Was your family farm a dairy?
No, it was not. It was a grass seed and wheat.
Yeah. Okay. Willamette Valley Classic.
Yep. Some row crops, and they sold to the canneries. So yeah, it was all a commodity farm.
Okay. Very good. And does your father work for you now?
He does not. They live next door. He's 81 years old, and he has a huge garden, but no, he's happily retired.
Good for him. And do you still milk cows?
I do not. I'm in my 50s. And when I turned 55 a few years ago, it was like, getting pooped on and all the great things. I worked myself out of milking cows. So I stopped selling direct to consumer when I was traveling 10 or 12 times a year speaking at conferences. And then my daughter she's the succession plan. So she's taken over the farm. She's transitioning it to a flower farm, but no. And that's one of the things I love to teach the clients I work with. Many of them recognize that it's unsustainable, the physical labor involved. And when they finally learn to make money, they can hire a lot of that out so they don't have to be out there. So I backed out of milking cows just like one shift at a time, as I was able to charge more and hire people to replace me. So
yeah, wonderful. And your daughter with her flower farm, you're following her on your podcast, you told me, right?
Yes.
A startup business there?
Yep. We are starting from scratch, following her journey, and I'm going to have all the mistakes she makes and learns from. So hopefully it could be a 2-year-long series on my podcast. And what's great about the marketing I teach is it works for any kind of farmer. I know you're more into ranching and the animal side of it. I was the dairying side of it. She's flowers. But selling direct to consumer is the same no matter what you sell. I have oyster farmers in my marketing program, everything in between.
Yep. Yeah, very good. Okay, so let's dive into the marketing some. So you came at this with your family history. You got started. Give us a little bit about what you've learned about marketing and what needs to happen. So when we go to a vertically integrated type program, what I see is most of us as agricultural people go into that and we don't have the same background that marketing type people have.
Right.
So there's a big gulf there. Yeah, let's jump into that.
I think the biggest mistake farmers make today when they decide to sell direct to consumer is they see social media. It's free and everybody's on there and they see other people selling their things on there. So they think that is how we market our products. And they usually try that for a little bit before they end up in my program. And they're like, I'm spending hours on social media and I don't make any money. What's the problem? Why is it not working? And the problem is social media is not a marketing foundation. It's just a channel. It's just like putting an ad in a newspaper anywhere else. And so social media marketing does not work to sell your products unless you have the foundation of a website and email marketing. And then the next thing they say is, well, nobody checks email anymore. That's just not true. So the biggest mistake they make is they think email marketing is outdated. Nope. It's withstood the test of time. It's 150 times more profitable than any social media marketing ever will be. So that's kind of where we start is you've got to build out a foundation. So I encourage them, don't waste a minute longer posting on social media until you go get your foundation in place. An email marketing software provider and a very basic, simple website. So that's kind of where we start. And that's the biggest mistake people make is thinking social media is where it's at. It can be helpful later on, but it won't work to make money without the foundation.
Right. So maybe we should back up just a little bit, because again, for our audience, it might be worth drawing the distinction between marketing and sales. Could you give us some definitions there?
Sure. So sales is what you do after you've done your marketing. Marketing is building a relationship.
Okay.
So people buy from you when they trust you, and they trust you when you communicate with them consistently. Farmers often, we get busy. Most people are seasonal, and the seasonal busy can be 18-hour days, 14-hour days, 12-hour days.
Lots of free time to spend on social media in the evening.
Exactly. So they lose touch with their customers. Or in the winter, they think, well, I don't need to email my customers because I don't have any flowers, vegetables, meat, milk, eggs to sell. And that's a huge mistake. You've got to connect with your customers at least every 2 weeks in an email so they trust you. It has to be consistent communication. If you show up 6 months later and say, hey, we just butchered a beef cow, let's make some sales, or we got 10 head at the butcher, I need you guys to pay up your deposits now. They don't trust you because you haven't had that consistent communication and you're not going to make a sale. So that's where we start. And that trust can be built in a week, a month, 6 months, 2 years. It's going to take as long as it takes, but we're in it for the long run. So you've got to start building that trust. And that's the one thing social media prevents you from building trust, because there's an algorithm in place that prevents 95% of your followers from seeing your posts. So that's what I'm teaching them. Marketing is building trust through consistent communication. Then, and only then, when you say, hey, I had 10 hogs go to slaughter this week. We're selling them by the half or the piece or whatever. People have been in your world communicating with you twice a month for the last 4 months, 6 months, year, whatever. And they're like, oh, I want to buy from this guy. I like what he has to say, or this woman. She gets me. She understands me. So it's building a relationship with people through the written word, wherever that written word is, or the spoken word, if it's podcast, video, that sort of thing. And then asking them to buy your products. And I practice the 80-20 rule, or I encourage the 80-20 rule, where you want to be building relationship with people 80% of the time, and then only trying to sell to them 20% of the time.
So back to the marketing versus sales. So social media, as you're saying, is a sales channel, whereas everything you're doing leading up to that is relationship building. And as we know with all kinds of, it's the same with courting my wife kind of thing, right?
Absolutely.
In that type of don't jump right to the end. Let's make this a process.
Yeah, that's a very good analogy I've heard in the marketing world is going on the first date and saying, hey, let's get married right now. It's like, wait a minute. You haven't even, I don't know anything about you. You need to see her once a week for a number of months or years before you ask for the sale, for closing the deal, right? Marketing your farm products is the same way.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so what else do we need to know as we think about marketing? Where do we need to go after we decide we're going to do better at this? Where do we get started?
Like I said before, having an email marketing platform in place. The only legal way to sell your products is through email marketing software. You've probably heard of like MailChimp or MailerLite or ConvertKit or Aweber. There's Constant Contact. There's hundreds of them, if not thousands. They're all great. Just choose one. It's the only legal way to sell. That's another mistake farmers make is they think they can send an email out of their Gmail account and blind copy people or just send it to all their contacts and say, hey, come buy our stuff.
Yeah.
And that's illegal. It's against the anti-spam laws.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yes. A lot of farmers, they ignore that. And then pretty soon I'll get an email saying, oh my gosh, my email has been shut down. So they do catch up with you eventually.
Interesting.
And you've just got to be sending your emails out of an email marketing software platform. So the first step, sign up for MailChimp or any of them. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
MailChimp is free for the first 1,000 people. And by the time you get 1,000 people, if you learn copywriting the way I teach, you'll be making plenty of money to pay for that. So sign up for that and have at least a one-page website.
Okay.
So that's where you start. And then I know we're going to talk about mindset later, but the other important thing is you've got to have this mindset that you're serving your customers, you're helping your customers. You're not trying to get people to buy. Your website, for instance, is there to help people.
Yeah.
So you want to start practicing thinking, how do my products help people? And you learn how they help people by you asking them. You say, why do you buy our meat? Why do you buy our eggs? What do they do for you? What do they do for your family? People are going to give you your marketing material. A lot of farmers say, well, I don't know what to say. What would I say in an email every 2 weeks? Your customers will tell you exactly what to say, because if one person says, here's what your products do for me, guaranteed 20 or 100 others get the same result. So you want to start thinking that your website is there to help people. Think recipes. How can I help them get a healthy dinner on the table? Because that's why they're coming to buy farm products direct from the farmer anyway.
Yep.
How can I make that process easier?
At Ranchite LLC, we believe your ranch deserves more than just survival mode. You deserve to thrive. Our experienced accountants and business coaches will help you get control over your financials so you can focus on what you do best, running the ranch. We offer a comprehensive process that includes bookkeeping, consulting, and even training tailored to your needs. Don't let your financials slow you down. Visit RanchiteLLC.com to schedule your free consultation and let Ranchite take care of the numbers so you can take care of the rest of it.
Very good. And then how do we go about finding emails? How do we start filling up that MailChimp or whatever email send stuff to?
Well, the first people on your list are going to be your mom and your sister and your daughter and your cousins.
My mom and dad get all of my emails. Yes.
It's important to remember that everybody starts at zero. A lot of people get overwhelmed. They get their email marketing platform. They're like, I only have 20 people. Everybody starts at zero.
Yep.
You may only need 20 people. And so you start there. And then if you're at a farmer's market, you just ask every person for their email and you just say, hey, can I get your email so we can keep in touch? And you're always building your email list. The other thing, okay, two things. The first thing is it's more important. It's worth more money. It's more valuable to get their email than to make a sale that day. If you make a sale and you don't get their email, the chances of them coming back are very slim. So say you made a $50 sale, that's all you're going to get. If you get their email and you don't make a sale, now the lifetime value, I help my clients figure out the lifetime value of a customer is now $1,000 or $5,000 over the months and years.
Because of the relationship, not the single transaction.
Exactly. So that's another mindset shift is you've got to focus on getting their email so that you can build a relationship with them is the business you're in.
Right.
Sales come after that. And the other thing is I teach them how to get a funnel onto their website so that you can get email subscribers any time of day while you sleep. You don't have to actively do that. When people land on your website, maybe you have a free recipe book up there or something. I give them templates on how to create that, and you gather emails 24/7.
I love it. So this is another one. Maybe I'll have you explain a little lifetime customer value. There are multiple ways to calculate it, but explain that a little more. You mentioned it with regard to the getting the email versus getting the sale. How do you calculate it, for example?
Well, one big challenge farmers tell me is they can make a sale once, but they don't get repeat customers. So they're constantly hustling to get new customers.
Yep.
When you build a relationship with people, over time, you can see about how long they stay with you. I always figured for my farm and for my clients' farms, it's again kind of the 80-20 rule where you're going to turn over 20% of your customers every year. A lot of farmers, when they first come to me before they have their relationship building in place, they're losing 80% of their customers every year and only 20% are staying. But when you practice relationship-based marketing, you flip that. And so you can start to see that your average customer stays with you about 5 years.
Yeah.
That might mean that some are buying from you for 10 years and someone else buys from you for 1 year, but it averages out to maybe about 5 years. This is going to depend on a lot of things, but let's just say it's 5 years. On my farm, people averaged $30 a week. That's $1,500 a year for 5 years. So the lifetime value of my customers is $7,500.
So how do we think about our marketing costs in the face of lifetime customer value? This is a little sort of math and thought experiment I love. If we have a customer that's going to come and spend $50 once, right, it's not too hard to think about what percentage of that $50 should be marketing. If we're marketing into a relationship, if you will, and we have a lifetime customer value that is, hundreds or thousands of dollars, but spread over a period of time into the future, how do you think about how you decide how much you should spend on marketing to acquire that $30 a week customer?
Sure. So for my farm, $1,500 a year, and say someone's buying a quarter beef, so $1,500 a year is a good number, or you're doing a flour CSA, whatever it is you're doing, or even to keep it even, $1,000. Well, what would you pay to make $1,000? Would you pay $500 to make $1,000? Heck yeah. There's no stock I can invest in. I can't give someone $500 today and make $1,000 this year from it. But because online relationship-based marketing requires a few pieces of software, it's not that expensive.
Right.
And you've got to learn. I always figure you need to invest in education, whether that's my marketing class or, free marketing training is only going to get you so far. But yes, say, we had 100 customers on average, 100 families that we fed on our farm all year long. And so $150,000 in revenue a year in retail sales. And marketing will be a fraction of that. The biggest investment in marketing is you have to learn the skills. So the software tools you use are going to be very small, say maybe $100 a month for your website and your email marketing service. So that's $1,200 a year for $150,000 in sales. But you've got to put yourself out there so that the investment comes in. You need to spend 10 or 20 hours a week learning and practicing and implementing and tweaking. It's not a once and done thing. So that's where the investment comes in, is more the time. And most farmers really miscalculate how much time it's going to take. They think they can spend a couple hours a month marketing. Unfortunately, it's not.
Yeah.
But the payoff is huge.
Yeah, that's where we get to. And we work with a number of customers who've had to break through that, mentality, if you will, about, well, boy, really $1,000? Like, that seems to me like an incredible amount of money. And when we look at the return on ad spend as they've gone, now these are, bigger businesses, maybe multi-million, as they've gone from, 500 to 1,000 to 3,000 to 10,000 to 20,000 to 50,000 in ad spend and beyond, they see the return, right? And it's like, holy smokes, just same as your comment earlier. Why weren't we doing this earlier? This is very, very valuable when you're seeing a 6-to-1 type return on ad spend. Like, that's new money made, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're doing it correctly, you're not just getting the initial sale, you then are committing a 3 to 5 year, 10-year customer.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is when it's done correctly. A lot of farmers too will just go waste money on ads.
Absolutely. Right.
They'll throw it away, but there is nothing that will replace you having to learn how to write. Whether you're writing for an ad, an email, or a social media post, or your website, you've got to learn the skills. I work with farmers all the time and just becoming better and better writers at communicating the value and compelling people to buy your products through the written or spoken word.
Very good. Okay. Anything else we want to talk about with regard to marketing before we wrap up here?
I think that's a good start. I gave them some action steps if they aren't doing it yet. And then
don't be a criminal. So you can't just send random emails out.
Yep. Yeah, they will catch up with you and shut your personal email account down.
And then you're really in the pickle. And then I think the other thing you mentioned that is huge value to us, it's actually one of the principles we run our company on, which is provide value first, right?
Yes.
Start by serving the customer and then provide value to them and then go from there. Okay, you offer some courses. I'd love you to talk about those for a minute. You've got a website and a podcast, and you obviously do some speaking. So do you want to tell us about what you got coming up, what you got going on?
Sure. My podcast is Profitable Mindset, and it's wherever you listen to podcasts. It's out there.
It's a great podcast. I love to listen to it.
Thank you. My website is charlottemsmith.com. And every quarter, I teach a free training that's 2 to 4 hours on a couple different days. And you can always sign up for whatever. And it's always going to give you, like, take what we did today and times that by 10. You're going to get so much specific learning about marketing. And so you can always sign up for the next one, whatever that one is, at charlottemsmith.com/masterclass. And there's a free training, and then there's a replay that's sent out as well. So they can learn a ton from that.
Love it. And you work with farmers and ranchers all over the country, or you're in Oregon, so are they just around you?
I have farmers, ranchers in 15 different countries in my program.
15 countries?
15 countries. I think every single state of the United States. I have about 300 farmers a year go through my program. So every state in the United States and 15 countries.
Okay. Give me an idea of some of these countries. Are they all English-speaking countries?
Well, no, but for instance, I have farmers in France and Spain and Germany and Austria, and they speak enough English. Or I have a French-Canadian woman, and when I do her website reviews, I just hit translate. And so I see her website in English, even though it's in French. So as long as they speak English, because I don't speak other languages, they will learn from my program. And of course, Australia and New Zealand. So lots of English-speaking countries, but also lots of other countries as well, as long as they can speak English.
Well, that's wonderful. And I think the sort of mission you've got for your work coming from your childhood experience is pretty spectacular. So it's fun to see how that obviously very unpleasant event from your teenage years has sort of put you in a position to be able to help lots of other people.
Yeah, we don't have to ascribe to this belief that farmers can't make money. We absolutely can when we learn this skill. It's a skill set.
That's exactly right. Cool. Charlotte, thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, John.
Thank you for tuning into the Ranchonomics podcast. We hope this episode helped you win today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with a friend.